Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're checking in live on LinkedIn. As we get started, before I make our official announcement, I just want to do a quick tech check for everybody. If you're live with us on LinkedIn, go ahead and drop a chat. Let us know you can hear us and see us. We are excited to be in this conversation with you, and we just want to make sure you can hear us before we jump on in. See,
I can hear you loud and clear, Lisa.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You got gardeners
All
in the
right.
background, but we hear you.
We're good. We're good. Okay. Hey. So now I'll do our official intro. Everybody ready? Because now we've got tech checked out of the way. If I can get a drum roll, please. Welcome to the inaugural first ever Akraya Innovation Lab. We are talking about creating best places to work. And I have the honor of being your host. I'm Lisa Dury, the CEO of RLD Group. And I am joined with two fabulous, amazing, smart, deeply caring, innovative speakers today. And we are going to be keeping it real, sharing insights and practical knowledge, and giving you tangible things you can do right now so that your workplace is the best place to work. Everybody down for that today? You ready to rock and roll? Yeah?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so how about some official introductions, everybody? Can I just tell you how lucky I am to do this part? So, first of all, I just want to say that we brought experts to you because this is a thought leadership program. So these are not people just writing about it in textbooks. They're actually doing the work. So Amar Panchal, CEO and co-founder of Akraya, waving at us right here. Let me just tell you, it's fun to have a hype person talk about how awesome you are, because not only are you an entrepreneur with a well-rounded background in establishing marketing and delivering IT consulting service, but Akraya is ranked as the #1 best place to work by the Business Journal and ranks as a Glassdoor best places to work. I just want to say, what? How lucky are we to hear from you today? I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here. And I was reading Gallup surveys recently, and one of the surveys says that only 32% of employees in the US are engaged. And about a year back, the same survey had 36% of employees engaged. So, not only is this moving in the wrong direction, it also tells us that about 68% of employees are disengaged in any organization. And this is a really, really important topic in today's difficult environment. So I'm hoping we can share some of our lessons learned, and maybe a year from today we would have made some dent in these statistics.
Yeah, well, there's nobody I think we could better learn from than what you've done with Akraya. And the thing that I think about when you share the statistic, you and I were both looking at similar data, because what that says is we got a lot of work to do. And I also know there are companies that actually don't have that statistic because they have the workplace that works for the organization and the employees in there. So I can't wait to ask you some questions and have you share your knowledge today. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, everybody. Our next speaker needs no introduction. You can tell by the glasses alone, we're bringing it, right? Brooklyn Descent is here. She's the Chief Happiness Officer and keynote speaker. She is not from Happiness at Work is the company. Yes, Brooklyn? So let me just say this: a motivational speaker, comedian, and happiness at work expert. She's dedicated her life to finding the secret of happiness and spreading positivity to everybody she meets, championing a positive mindset as the best way to level up your life and succeed with your dreams. Brooklyn has coached hundreds of students through workshops and speaking engagements, challenging them to find their inner happiness and become their best selves. Brooklyn's going to surprise you with her in-depth knowledge of the science of the mind and business motivation. So let me just say, Brooklyn, you're here. We're so excited.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Welcome, everybody. Time to get happy. Turn it upside down. That's what we do. This is what we do. So we're going to talk about all that. I just hope people walk away today having learned something, a little nugget that will change your life, your perspective, the filter by which you see the world. And so, so I'm excited to be here and talk about this because it is so significant in every workplace that we're in, every workplace that I've been in, and I'm still in. And it's like, okay, how can we just jazz up the joy? How do we do it? And so that's what we're going to be talking about.
Oh, we are. I'm going to go straight to the first question because we're not messing around here, right? So it's for you, Brooklyn. So your title's Chief Happiness Officer. What does that mean? And can everyone be a Chief Happiness Officer?
Yes. The answer, first of all, is yes. I want everybody to write their name and underneath it say Chief Happiness Officer along with whatever else you do. Happiness Officer has, I would say, two parts to it. One is the philosophical and one is the practical, right? I think that we all have the opportunity to do that, to have be both philosophical and practical. From a philosophical standpoint is, look, we all have the ability to find joy, happiness, enthusiasm, find the goodness, the positivity in life in everything that we do. And is the mindset. And again, I always say the filter by which you look at life through, you have the opportunity to make a choice. Happiness and joy is a choice. And when I make that choice, I then will respond or act accordingly in the world. Right. If I decide, I'm going somewhere, I'm late, and all of a sudden you get all kinds of red lights, and we know we've been there. You're supposed to be somewhere 8:00, and it is 7:53, and you get all kinds of red lights. I can go mad about it, or go, you know what? Of course this would happen. And then get ready for, hey, you know what? Let me maybe stop for get some coffee for people, maybe do something to make that arrival a little bit different. It's the filter. It gives you opportunity to think differently. And then from a practical standpoint, Chief Happiness Officer, again, anybody can have this title. You don't have to have it, literally in your environment, but you can embody it. And that is, look around your environment and consider, how can I shift and move the energy from, sort of a status quo to maybe a little bit better. It could be, I'm gonna high five somebody when I get to work. Oftentimes when I get into the office of work, I'll have music coming in with me, like in my back pocket, coming in with some music, and it immediately shifts the energy. What can you do to shift the energy from a, like I said, just sort of stagnant to a little bit of positivity? Because that moment that you make that choice, it shifts people's energy, it shifts how they're thinking, and improves their day. And that, like I said, anybody can do this. And again, from a philosophical standpoint, from a practical standpoint, is what are the things we can do in our environment that impacts how people feel?
Yeah, if I can join you real quick, one of the things we talk about with our clients is the energy around the thought you have about it. This lens you're talking about. So it's, I have to, or I must. That's like low vibe energy. Yeah. I choose to, or I get to, or yes, I'm honored to, is a different mindset you're bringing right into it. Mm-hmm. So I just want to plant that seed real quick as like a cherry with what you're talking about. And I'm getting I love, because you're giving feedback. Like, it's so cool. But Amar, what would you add to this, right? How do you bring happiness to work? And do you see yourself as a Chief Happiness Officer?
In a work context, a lot of times we forget that most of us spend the majority of our waking day in the office or at work. And so if you're not enjoying, or if you're not happy at work, it's a complete waste of maybe 70% of your waking day. So it's extremely important that you are enjoying what you do, and part of it is certainly your responsibility, as Brooklyn just described. Bringing in that mindset to work every day is really important for you to feel happy. Certainly, as the employer or as a leader, we can do a lot of things to enable and facilitate, but also, there's certainly a role being played by each of us to be that Chief Happiness Officer in our work as well as in our personal lives. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting when I hear you talk, because I want to dig in a little bit about the awards that you've all won, right? Best places to work. Can you address what that award means to you? Can you tell us, what is that? What are the accolades and what are the factors that make it a best place to work? Because yes, we have to have the right mindset as leaders. And I also know that we have to know our people and create a space where our people can thrive. And I know that you do that. So can we just all like lean on into this, like get your notepads ready? Because I want to hear some of the thoughts about what went into how you created the culture and the environment, and what did you do actually to, how were you recognized for these awards? Let's dig in there. I think everybody would love to learn from you.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So 20 years back, when I started Akraya, we started right here in the Silicon Valley. And when you're headquartered in the Valley, you very quickly realize that you're competing with some incredible, VC funded startups, companies that are changing the world, and large enterprises that are um, that are places that people die to work at. So you're competing with all of these companies for the same talent. we are a services business, so we were hiring recruiters, we were hiring people in sales, we were hiring people with technology and engineering background, and very quickly we realized that unless we can build a employer brand, we would not be able to survive, forget thrive. And so it's been a journey. We've always worked on creating an environment that stands out. But initially, the lessons learned were, it was, oh, we need to compete on perks. We need to have similar perks. We need to have benefits. Certainly, there are certain things that are table stakes, but really, at the end of the day, employees are looking for an environment that they believe in the bigger purpose of the company. It aligns with their values and their aspirations. They're looking for a place that recognizes them, where they are given feedback. They feel like they're making a difference to the goal and the mission and the vision of the company. Um, they get along with their peers, with team members, and they feel like they are heard and that companies are responsive to them. And lastly, but probably most important, is that they trust the organization that they work for.
Mhm.
These are, I mean, I've mentioned several things, but then there's, specific steps that you can take in order to address each of these and move up the ranking in each of these components.
Yeah.
Um,
It
yep.
sounds like there's a combination of you knew your values up front and the leader you wanted to be when you guys created this wonderful company. And at the same time, there was intentionality in your hiring practices, how you run your meetings, how you assign work or progress jobs. And because listen, I've been in the Valley most of my career too, and it's a pressure cooker and it changes on a dime. One minute everybody's thriving, and the next minute, you've got the contagion of layoffs, and you've had to navigate all that and support all those customers. So, is there a core value in here that we might unearth a bit to just have people reflect on if you were to think about the values that you hold as you built this?
Absolutely. We went through a fairly let me go back about 6 or 7 years ago. We've been a best place to work over the last 15 years, but over time, um, you sometimes make the wrong decisions or the market changes, and we were struggling about 7 years back, and so we really took the effort to do a reset at that time, and we spent some conscious exercises with our internal teams to figure out what is it that we do and what do we stand for. And yeah, if you would indulge me for a minute, I'm going to talk about what Akraya's, how we describe our purpose and our core values, and how it results in becoming a best place to work. So the way we describe ourselves is, what do we exist for? We exist to deliver three times karma, the way I describe it. One is we enable our clients to create revolutionary products. Now, we're very fortunate to have companies that are truly changing the world, but recognizing that it's our purpose to enable to them to create revolutionary products helps. Secondly, we empower candidates to pursue their dreams. As a staffing company, we are changing lives every day. We are connecting people to livelihood, and that's our second purpose. But you need to recognize that that's what you do. And lastly, the one that is closest to my heart is we inspire Akrayans. That's what we call our internal employees, our staff. We inspire Akrayans to realize their potential. So that's our purpose. And our purpose is supported with four core values. Our first core value is own it. The way I describe it to any employee that joins Akraya is it's my job and it's my leadership's job to ensure that you have clarity on what is expected from you. But then I expect you to take ownership of those outcomes. We will provide you all the tools, we will provide you all the transparency, but we expect you to take ownership. Doesn't matter what level in the organization you are at. The second is urgency. We are in a business where it's extremely competitive. All of our clients are in very competitive industries. So we recognize that our industry, it thrives on showing this sense of urgency. And so we've made that a core value for the company. The third core value we have is learn. I'm a big believer in being a lifelong learner. Our industry changes almost every 18 months. We have to reinvent ourselves, and it's not unique to us. It's unique to almost every industry is like that. It's extremely competitive. So being a passionate learner is a core value for Akraya. And the last core value is give back. We think of this in terms of giving back to each other. Sometimes giving back means holding each other accountable, but then there's giving back on the external front. We all live and work in communities and societies. What are we doing to give back to our communities? What are we doing to take care of the environment? So those are all aspects of give back. But those are our four core values, and then these purpose and core values drive many of our decisions that results in an engaged workplace.
Yeah, I'm just so glad I asked this question because you just gave like the master's class on what it means to create culture, right? So you've got your 3 times karma, you've got your 4 core values, you talked about what you stand for, and then how it interplays with each other about accountability, agency, and also support. I celebrate that so much because having clarity like that at the leadership level can then create the environment, right? And so I really appreciate you sharing that. Brooklyn, do you have any comments on that? And then I have a question for you, Brooklyn, but what are you inspired by, or what would you like to add? Because we're dropping the truth here. We're like dropping some nuggets. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, first of all that you said in terms of your core values actually mirror a little bit at what it actually takes to create a culture that people want to live in, work in, thrive in. And it mirrors very much something called psychological safety. And that is that people have to feel a sense of inclusion, first of all. And your own it is, look, we're going to give you all the clarity, which most people often lack is super clarity about where we're going, what we're doing, what's my role. So giving people clarity and then including them in conversations and decision making, in having a say, having a connectivity in their environment is crucial. Most people don't want to, especially in our environment, don't want to just go to work, do their thing. They want to be included, meaning included in conversations, which also means I'm going to bring my very best. So when you say own it, bring your best, deliver on that, and see what happens. The next thing, I have to be a learner. I want to be able to learn. Most everybody in our environment wants to learn something new. They want to evolve their skill set. They want to be of value, and you have it set. Right. I love also the fact of giving back. The next thing is, now that I learned, I got to contribute. How do I contribute back to the business? How do I contribute my ideas, my thoughts around peers? In fact, when I talk about happiness, it's not about rah-rah happy. You could be in the middle of a difficult project, stressed out, not knowing what's going on, but through it, you feel joy because you're learning, you're growing, you're expanding, you're connecting. That's exactly what you're doing, which is no surprise that you get first place, because that's literally is at the foundation of creating workplaces that matter, workplaces people want to be in. They're doing exactly those things. They're able to be included. They're able to learn. They can contribute what they learn. And then the last thing, this is what I love about what you have, is you can challenge the status quo. Can I challenge where things are and also not be ridiculed or put down or whatever? But in your case, leadership accepts it, like brings it in, like tell me what we can do differently. How can we improve our services and so on? That literally brings the whole person back to work. So when we look at the 68% that is out there, 62% that is out there, what they're doing is, how can I be more of value? And nobody's necessarily in maybe those places. People are not answering that question. And as a leader, you're answering those questions with your leadership team. How can you bring more value, bring more of who you are to bring value to our company? And you're answering that question, which is outstanding.
It's inspiring, right? Outstanding is a great word too. And I think the thing on my personal experience, having been in partnership with Women Back to Work more specifically, and Akraya, sponsoring that, the give back thing for me, you had me at hello. It's an obvious value of give back based on how you all show up in the world and what you're doing to not only, and you had 3 things. It was enable the products of your customers, right? Empower your candidates, and then inspire the Akrayans, right? Like that lens, those 3 things, I think everyone can take notes about. Where am I, back to the lens, where am I looking? Am I only thinking about the customers? Am I thinking about the employees? Am I thinking about the candidates, right? So Thank you for this wonderful conversation in this moment right now to inspire others. And please drop it in the chat, something you appreciate about this right now, something you want to celebrate, something that inspired you. And what I'd like to do now is Brooklyn, I said I had a question, so I'm going to go to you now.
Yes.
You know, while most business leaders believe having a diverse and inclusive culture is critical to performance, they don't always know how to achieve that goal. And you were really emphasizing inclusion. They feel included, right? So what are some actionable things they can do to convert their aspirations of inclusion and belonging into a true reality?
Step into fear.
Say that again.
Step into your fear. Leaders. I'm talking to leaders now. I'm getting goosebumps. Ooh, Lord. Getting goosebumps. Step into the fear of what will that mean? What's the impact of that? Oftentimes we will do what's known as future pacing. We'll future pace something. I don't know if it'll work. And then we reel back. What Akraya has been able to figure out is like, no. This not only works, it literally works. Like people being included in dialogue, conversation, solving problems, because what everybody wants to be as a human is to be of value. And value goes beyond my job description. Because here's the thing. The job description is the job, and then you have your work. Work and job is two different things. Work is what I'm here to do as a human. I'm here to contribute in a human way in many different ways. And what Akraya is doing is allowing people to do that in many different ways in their own way to be able to bring who they are. So stepping into fear as a leader, I have to be courageous to step into the fear of what will that mean? What does that look like? And inclusion means, look, we have problems to solve. Imagine that you have a problem to solve. And as an organization, you say, hey, folks, here's the challenge we're facing. Who has ideas? How do we make this a little bit different? Bringing in people into the conversation who perhaps never had a voice in a situation like that. And you find that people stay longer when they find community. How they find community? By making a contribution. How do I make a contribution? Is by bringing my ideas to the table. And this whole concept of inclusion and belonging, which I love that we now included the word belonging, but it is a human need. It's literally part of Maslow's hierarchy, human needs. So no matter what your skin tone, color, or whatever, which mine is beautiful. So I'm like, I identify as gorgeous. So basically, whoever you are, whatever you bring to the table, it's about including humans into the conversation. Now, of course, in many cases, it may not be that you can include everybody in every conversation, but here's the problems. And there's people who are talented in your environment you may not even know about. And when you're trying to figure out how to engage people, it's figure out what their talents are. What are the things they enjoy? How can they make small contributions that will make them feel of value? And that makes a huge impact. So part of it is, as a leader, step into the fear of what you think the impact of that might be. Like, oh, it's going to be too much. People are going to, no. You'll find that the entire employee base will rise with the tide, if you will, when they do it together.
Brooklyn, I absolutely love the step into the fear. And, when you're talking of inclusion, people want to be heard. And many times we as leaders fear what they're going to tell us. And so we never step into that fear. I still remember a discussion I had with, our head of HR. I don't know whether he's he's listening in, but I owe him a note of thanks because he moved me in the right direction. So we were at that time about to launch an employee on a feedback platform, and the decision we had to make was should it be anonymous or should it be people needed to disclose themselves in order to give the feedback. And I prided myself on being an approachable leader, and I was like, why should anybody be afraid of saying what they want to say? And my head of HR was like, no, it needs to be anonymous so people have that safe environment for them to say whatever they want. And I'm glad I took his advice, because we started with people being able to give completely anonymous feedback. And at first people didn't trust it that this is truly anonymous, so initially the feedback was fairly guarded. But over time people realized that okay, it is truly anonymous, and it is only visible to the head of HR and to me. And as we started taking actions based on the feedback we were hearing, some of the feedback honestly was hurtful. I mean, I struggled with some feedback we got, but we took some actions. We fixed some things. We broadcast to the whole company that, hey, this is what we are hearing and this is what we are doing about it. And over time, I'm so pleased to have stepped into that fear like you described, and we've made some of the most impactful changes in our environment have been the result of those feedback. So 2 points here. One is certainly step into the fear, but employees want to be heard, and the fact that somebody is taking the effort of giving you feedback means that employee is engaged. You may not like what they're saying, but the fact that they're saying something means they care about the company, they care about the environment, they want to make a difference. And so welcome feedback. Feedback is a gift. And I love step into the fear, leaders. I would encourage all of us to do that.
That's it. We're going to get t-shirts.
Right. We're going to step into the fear, chief happiness officer on the bottom, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
you guys are inspiring me when I think about, well, there's a couple things. One is step into the fear is such a good, I just love it so much, because what happens in the psychology of leaders, right, is back-to-back meetings, everything's on, the board's at me, shareholder value, you're just like, I can't do one more thing. And I would say step into the fear and take a deep breath. Breathe to regulate your nervous system, because when you are triggered and you are constantly in a stress space, you can't hear the feedback, right? You're not going to want to, you're just like, yeah. So I think part of it is like owning your own inner compass and giving yourself a moment to take a deep breath and then ask yourself, I love this so much. I've done so many feedback surveys. What do you think the intention was behind this feedback? It's like holding people big that they really care enough and they're being courageous. So I appreciate your story so much, Amar, just exactly what you're talking about. So thank you for that. One of the things I think we should talk about when we're talking about all of this is, yes, through the leadership lens, there's things we need to do as leaders, right? But let's look at it just as the individual contributor as well. People that are in the organization, they're getting asked for this feedback. They have to step into the fear too, because they're like, I'm going to go say something about it. So any tips for people that don't have people manager title and want to be a part of creating a workplace that thrives and the best place to work? And whoever feels called to go first, but what are your tips for people who don't own people leadership roles, but are leaders in their own career?
That's such a great question. And I would say that I'll let you answer in terms of what you notice your people do in Akraya and what are the behaviors, right? What I use advice, and I've noticed, but also advice, is that it only begins back to the whole lens business. It begins how I start my day. And how nobody shows up to work, I hope, by saying, how can I mess up today? How can I make this terrible? No, we don't wake up that way. But what happens is that we are, as individuals, from the moment we wake up, the moment we go back to sleep, we're faced with a decision. How something is going to how I'm going to allow something to come through and impact. How am I going to allow it to impact me? Because we're making a decision. The decision is, what meaning am I deriving about what's happening right now? And you can assign any meaning you want. You get feedback. I can assign to it, it's terrible feedback, or wow, it impacted me internally. I need to really sit down with this. And so the decision is, I'm going to step into it. I'm going to step into it and understand it, right? So you come into with a decision, I'm going to understand something versus I'm going to reject it or push it away, or this is terrible. The signals that we get when we are facing something, and if we have a signal, internal emotional signal, oh, this is terrible, that's the moment to say, what is it about it? And to take a learning stance. Right. So I'm going to take a learning stance and say, what does this mean for me? How can I use this for a benefit? What else could this possibly mean? Or what else could it possibly do with this? And what I discovered, and this is for everyone just out there in LinkedIn learners land, is this: the quality of your life, the quality of your life at work is closely related to the quality of questions you're asking yourself. Right. So the quality of life that you're having at work, the joy, the happiness, however you are performing at work, has a strong correlation to the quality of questions I'm asking myself. Why that is? Because if I ask myself, well, why am I doing here? Why is this happening? Why are they doing to me? Why do they have this thing? Well, this is terrible. Well, what do they think? Who do they think I am? Right. Those are not that great questions. But if you switch the questions to, you know what else can I do with this? I think, Lisa, you mentioned earlier, like, this is fun. I get to do this. I get to have all these things in my responsibility because I have the ability to. So what else can we do? How can we get a team together to do this together as a group? But I don't have to ask my manager about it. I can just get my peers together and go, how can we do this differently, you guys? We have this problem. What are the other things we can do? The quality of questions that you're asking yourself will determine the results that you get in your life, both in life and at work. So I would say one quick thing is notice the questions you're asking. You say, well, how do I notice? Pay attention. Literally jot down as you go through your day, become mindful. Take a little question, right? And go, what was, and usually the questions I'm asking myself, the feeling will come through. So if I'm feeling down, out, doubt, fear, worry, that means behind it, the questions I'm asking, are usually negative. But if I'm starting to feeling joy and hopeful, the questions I'm asking, the quality of questions are a high level, high vibration, right? Mm-hmm. Not to get a woo, but here we go. We're at woo work. And so essentially the higher vibration questions you're asking are what I call positively forward-moving questions. They're positively forward-moving questions versus holding you back.
Yeah, it's interesting because this applies whether you manage people or not, by the way. This is like life skills 101, much less leading large organizations, because I call them generative questions or life-giving questions. Same thing. So one of the things I know is when you're stressed and feeling like you can't do it or you don't want to step into the fear, it's literally like, I can't take one more thing. Or, oh my gosh, what if I can't solve it? So it's doubt, right?
Yes.
And then the question you might say is, how might I step into the fear?
Yes.
What is possible now that I have this data? How might I include others in this conversation? Yes. And my favorite of all is just to say the word imagine. And then have the aspirational vision. Imagine we got rated #1 best places to work and we knocked Akraya out of there first spot. What would we need to do? Right. And then it's like your energy shifts. And so I think for leaders, the point you're making, Brooklyn, so important is like, what are the questions we're asking and what's the story behind them? Because it's either a story of I'm not capable or it's too much versus this is so cool, I get to solve something. So I just want to offer that up. And then, Amar, I'd love to put your voice in here because you obviously been doing that. What questions are you asking yourself?
So, my comments to people that are, may not be people managers, I do feel that's the majority of the company, right? In any company, the largest number of people are individual contributors. But sometimes we underestimate the impact or the ability for us to make an impact in the company. And so my general advice to people is two things. One is, assume positive intent in all your interactions. When you're faced with something that you don't like or you feel threatened by, first assume that what could be the real positive intent or behind a decision or a situation. And the second is communicate. A lot of times people get frustrated, people get anxious, people get upset, but it's all in their mind, it's all caged in. And I encourage people to speak up, speak to their manager, express how they're feeling, because sometimes managers do not recognize that these thoughts are going on in your mind. And we, in many of our meetings, we have this concept of having an adult conversation, and we talk about it as people cannot read minds. So it's important that you express what's going on in your mind and you be honest in expressing what's going on in your mind. And the last piece of advice is, when you bring up problems, I encourage teams, or I encourage people that are working with me is, don't come with just a problem, come with a solution, come with a recommendation, because that's the behavior that we are looking for.
I love that. And I have a question for you on that. So one of the things I've been noodling on, and I use this in my own world and with our clients, is asking for support versus permission. And so I have heard, don't bring a problem, bring your ideas on a solution too. Right. I think in the world that we're in right now, with so much going on behind the scenes and with the world situation, AI, caregiving, all the things that go on that are in our personal lives. When someone comes to you with, let's just say, I need to change my schedule, or I need to move a deadline, or I see an opportunity we could make it better. Does the languaging matter to you? Like in the best places to work mindset, how do you show up? And what's the filter in which, how could someone present an idea to you or a request to you that would make you better understand what's going on and the business need behind it versus just, this is broken, needs to be fixed? What works well? What advice would you give to leaders and individual contributors when they think about raising issues or looking for support?
Well, over time, I've learned not to react to people's the way people phrase things. So I mean, it's still a work in progress.
Sure.
I catch myself very often having the reactor in me taking over versus the responder in me, so to say. And so, as a leader, my advice to all leaders is don't react, respond, which is take a few moments, take a pause, try and read beyond what the words are. What is the intention, what is the bigger sort of, how do we solve the situation, and really understand where the person is coming from. But from the individual's perspective, yes, I mean, the way you phrase the situation or the problem or your recommendation matters. And again, the advice, and in my one-on-one interactions with my team, I do take the effort of training and coaching that give some more context. Over communicate, so to say. Communication to me is very, very, very important. So I advise people to over communicate, especially when you want to affect a change. People need to understand where you're coming from and why, and what is the background and what is the future status that you want to get to, and how do you think we can get there. So yeah, that's my approach, that over communicate why you're recommending a certain thing, and from a leader's perspective, respond instead of reacting.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. Brooklyn, I would just love you to put your thoughts in here too, because when you think about a best place to work, and we know that everything's coming at people, what you don't see behind the Zoom screen is going on too, right? And people are in the office and trying to hold it all together, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. What thoughts do you have to just help people either keep perspective or shift their energy and how they're bringing themselves into work, whether it's on, virtual or into the office?
Yeah, such a great question. Here's what we all do, and it's kind of going back to what we've just been talking about. You can learn to manage your mental state. And this is a habit you can create. This is a learning opportunity to manage your own mental state, whether you're an individual contributor or manager. And what I mean by mental state is, and let me just say, kind of put it this way. Say you're in a meeting and you're about to be done, and you're going to get in your car and you're going to go home, and also you have to shift who you were being, how you were being, to now this other environment. When we go into work, whether that's a Zoom meeting or that's a live meeting, you have to shift where you're going. And I've heard this before, and I think it's been super helpful. Is give yourself a few minutes before jumping on that call, if possible. And if you're not leading the call, then maybe you can sit back for a little bit, or you're not leading the meeting, you can sit back for a little bit and just center yourself into what's coming up next, right? I call it clearing. You call it different thing. I just call it clearing. I need to clear it, reboot, reset, right? Sometimes computers do it for you. Doesn't let you get into anything. You have to reboot the whole thing. And I'm like, now I got to sit here and just breathe, right? So resetting your state, your mental state before you go into something is super powerful, because then I can be centered and ready. Something physically that I also advise people to do, especially if you say you have your manager and somebody's coming to you with an idea and you're like, oh my gosh, is to literally center yourself. And if you're sitting down, you can put your both feet on the ground, and just press your big toe into your shoe, into the ground, and center, and just be ready, because it sort of reminds you to be here versus having your brain be everywhere else, and future pacing what this person is saying, what they're doing, and what advice they have for you. So just sort of center yourself. Take a breath and shift the mindset. And so it'll help you to physically shift your thinking about the situation you're about to go into. But really, this is about also practice, right? So in the moment, you're like, oh, this is terrible. It's okay. Every moment is an opportunity to learn something. Every moment is a new lesson opportunity. And what I say is you can shift your mental state. I usually say shift happens. Shift happens. So shift happens.
And I say, don't shoot on me. So shift happens and don't shoot on me.
Don't shoot on me. Shift happens. I got to shift out of this one, right? It's like, oh, I had a major shift. That's one. The other thing, the last thing I want to say about this, because you had a really great question. What happens when I have a thought or something I want to share with my manager, and I'm not sure? Oftentimes, the way to shift into that conversation and actually have what we call like a preface to it is say, you know what, Lisa, I'm going to be raggedy for a minute. I'm going to lean into this comfort here. I don't even know. I'm just going to say this thing out loud. I don't know all the structure to it, but here's what I'm thinking. I wonder, when you're ready to have a quick conversation about an idea, because now I'm giving the person an opportunity to say, oh, you know what, this is awesome. How about give me 30, give me an hour so I can be fully focused. You help the other person, and whether that's another teammate or a manager, if you're managing up, hey, you know what, John, I have this idea. It's sort of unstructured, it's unput together yet, and I would love your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I would love your opinion, because then I'm inviting you to have a conversation. And as an individual contributor, you can do this, because guess what? Here's the cool thing about work. We are grown-ups, right? We don't need a hall pass or we have to raise our hand kind of thing, or sometimes raise our hand to make a conversation, to have a conversation. I can prepare the listener, the person, for this conversation. Nothing serious. Hey, listen, I have a few ideas, Lisa. I would love to run by you. They're sort of, raggedy, right? Don't know where it's going to go, but I would love your opinion. I love your opinion.
I think that's great. So here's the thing I want to say. I'd love your opinion right now. How about that? Yes. I'm going to transition. Yes. I'd love your opinion. Yes. Okay. I have 2 questions, and I see one in the chat that I think is important. So I'm going to be with laser round. We're going laser round. Okay. For time. So first question is, I think this is really important. So for all the HR leaders, the CEOs out there, the people in charge of the functions inside the organization, there's a Forbes top 10 perk we should be talking about. Right? Let's get really practical and talk. It's not about dry cleaning. Right? This is not about the foot massage in the break room. So Amar, can you tell us about?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So, this goes back to the early days of Akraya. And as I mentioned, we're competing with all these very, very well-funded startups. And we recognized very quickly that we cannot compete on perks. So what happened is, one Monday morning, one of my salespeople walked into the office and she was exhausted. It was Monday morning. I mean, after the weekend, right? So I was like, what happened? She said, oh, we had guests over. They left late in the evening. And then I was cleaning up and the house was a mess and all kinds of things were going on. And just that weekend, we had cleaners come to our house and clean the house. So, we had professional cleaners that used to come once every 3 weeks or something to do a deep clean. So that got me thinking that I could negotiate with the cleaners that we were using to go to my employees' homes once in 3 weeks. And I looked at the cost of that when I factored that as a percentage of the employee's cost. We realized that was very, very minimal, but the impact of that was incredible. So I negotiated with the cleaners we were using, and we decided we were going to subsidize it. It was not going to be 100% free, but you could call them twice a month, and Akraya would cover 80% of the cost.
I need this.
So about 2 months after that, I happened to go to one of the employees' homes for dinner. I mean, they invited us for dinner, and I walked in, and her husband gives me a bear hug. I was like, oh, what's wrong with this guy? He says, Amar, this perk you put in place is the best perk you could have ever put in place. And so, we were very proud of it. It was very effective, and it got recognized by Forbes as one of the top 10 perks in the country. So, yeah, super thrilled with that.
It's amazing, right? And so I'm hoping everybody's jotting this down right now, because, we all know working parents, caregivers, single people who are giving it all at work. Like, no matter what your home life is, who wouldn't want some support to get your house in a little bit better order? It's fabulous. The smile on my face when I learned this was like, yes, right? Yes.
It's so good. It's so well. And when I heard this too, I was like, oh, first of all, please. Yes. I need, in fact, the moment you said it, I just felt like, oh my God, I already felt like they were here. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yes. when they make the little rolls on the toilet paper, I mean, it was really great. So listen, what this story is about, and people would say, well, we can't do that for everybody. It is the impact that a small this decision of, you stepped into fear. You made a decision that made not just on the employee, but their families.
Exactly.
Right. The impact they made in their families. And guess what? I'm sure they share with other people. And now we have, millions of people are going to hear this as well. It's the impact that small decision has on the overall health and wellness of that employee. And because you noticed, right? You are an attentive leader. You notice something, you go, hey, I wonder what would be like, what would happen if. And the impact, and that hug was super meaningful because what it meant for him and his wife and his kids is like, oh my gosh, I don't have to come home all stressed out because my wife is having challenges with family because of, a dirty house. And who wants that? So you attended to something that seems simple, but it's the act of making a decision that makes a difference. So that is absolutely significant. But there is a couple questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, but people are now wanting to know the name of the cleaners. No, I'm kidding. But they're like, hey, can we have this perk too?
We need this perk.
There's one question I would like to end on because everybody's living in this one, right? So there was a question in here about how do you address a culture of back-to-back meetings? And so I want to just set the tone for everybody and say this is our last question on this first thought leadership event. I'm sure there's more coming, right? But I think this question it really reflects the world that we're in today. And I would like to just presence this is the question for both of you. What is your advice for culture of back-to-back meetings?
Great. I can give you my thoughts, but go ahead, Akraya.
Oh. Go ahead, Brooklyn.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna sound all whatever, but I'm gonna lean into discomfort for a minute about back-to-back meetings. Depending on who's making the meeting and who's leading it and so on, and you have to attend certain meetings. But it is about voicing, like, hey, hold on. I often will do this. People will start stacking stuff on my calendar, like, hey, hold on. Or actually in your own schedule, make sure that because if people are trying to do one-on-ones or group meetings, they'll look at your schedule availability and you have a buffer. Give yourself a buffer. And by the way, hopefully it doesn't happen every day. But if it does, it's a sign that we need to speak up and go, hang on, and speak to the organizers of meetings and go, listen, here's what's going on. Can we think about adjusting? So not just taking on it's on my calendar, I got to do it, but speaking up. So my biggest advice would be speak up, engage with the organizer. If it's a manager who has like 1,000,001 meetings, say, hey, listen, here's the impact it's having. What can we do? And or say, is it possible to then condense this and make them shorter than longer? We don't need 45 minutes or an hour. Can we make them? So having a conversation about those meetings so they can be more impactful as well. So the conversation about the scheduling of meetings, the conversation of the content of the meeting, right? So calendar, content, and compromise. I just made that up. So
look at that, the 3 C's coming at you from Brooklyn.
The 3 C's, right?
Calendar, content, compromise.
And compromise, right?
Yeah.
Boom. And so hopefully it's not every single day that this is happening, but if it is, it's a huge sign. But the second is that, look, if you have a day that's packed, and we all know from, time management, if it's packed, you won't have time to think and process. So allow yourself that time to compromise a little bit and go, hey, can we give up for this? Can we do that? Can we maybe do a longer meeting one day versus, in one day versus having it spread out through or vice versa. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. So I'm going to take one sentence here, and then Amr, you're going to close us out. You'll be the icing on the cake. Okay. So the one thing I would say on this topic, which I see a lot, is there an agenda? Do you need to be the one that's there? Sometimes managers and leaders think I have to be in every meeting. Well, there's people on your team who could really benefit and grow too. So I think it's being curious and asking yourself, how might we make this better? And then voicing it back to the 3 C's. So now we're going to close it out with the number one best places to work expert. What are your thoughts on
meetings, right? Back-to-back meetings, and it's a bane for most organizations. Some of the things that we've done at Akraya is to convey the importance of timing of meetings. We encourage that the meetings don't have to start at around hour. So, for example, I have daily huddles in the morning. It starts at 9:17. Not 9:15, not 9:10, not 9 o'clock. It starts at 9:17. It ends at 9:29. So it conveys two things. One is it's important that it starts on time. Second, it does not need to be 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes. It can be 12 minutes or 13 minutes. That's one practical sort of approach that we've taken at Akraya. The others is a work in progress, encouraging everybody to have an agenda for the meeting. Third is making sure only those people that are needed in the meeting are important. We had a call earlier this week where our CFO was talking about experience in her previous company where they had some kind of a clock or some kind of counter in the meeting that automatically looked at the number of people in the meeting and calculated based on their salary what is the cost of that meeting, and it was a running clock in the meeting. Obviously that these are some things that are made at the management level, but for an individual, I think the only other comment I would have is when you're setting up meetings, start them at a weird time and also end them to keep it as a 23-minute meeting, right? Have an agenda. So that's something that every individual can do. And then the last one I would encourage leaders and managers to do, maybe if you feel like there's back-to-back meetings all the time, is to start encouraging a no meeting day in a week. Like nobody has meetings that one day. That way everybody's focused on doing their tasks and not in back-to-back meetings. So these are some of the practical things that all of us could be adopting.
I appreciate this so much. I mean, so everyone out, thank you for being with us. We're a little over time. This question came up from the audience. I didn't want to ignore it. It's too important. So thanks for hanging with us. Here's what I'd say. If there's something you learned in chat, you want to share it in chat so we can all benefit from an aha, or you want to add your voice to this conversation, please use the chat. Brooklyn, thank you for being here. Amr, so excited to be hearing all that's been going on behind the scenes to get you guys to where you are today. From all of us to all of you, thank you so much for being at our inaugural Thought Leadership event, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.